Hi, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Emily Horton, and today I'm speaking to Dr. Marcio Gonçalves, the founder and host of the Swine podcast series. Marcio regularly interviews the brightest minds of the global swine industry, but today I thought it would be great to turn the tables and ask Marcio a little bit about where his journey began. So Marcio, thank you for speaking to the Pig Site today. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that.
No problem, it's good to hear. So I'm going to jump right in with some questions for you.
Okay.
Your academic background is in swine health and nutrition, but where did you develop your interest in pig production and more specifically pig nutrition?
Yeah, so originally from Brazil, I was raised in a small ranch there. Had one pig, one bunch of chicken and a horse and a bunch of dogs. We had a little kennel there that they were show dogs. So we would take them almost every weekend for shows and things like that. So I always loved animals. So since I was 7 or 8, I knew I wanted to work either with veterinary or biology, something like that. And so then got into vet school thinking, hey, vets do dogs and cats. That's all they do. A year in, I found out about the swine group there back in Brazil. It was a very good group, and I started going, really like enjoying it because it was a very well run department. And I have this theory that the more you learn something, the more you like it, right? So I was loving it, going to farms every winter, summer, every time that I could. And that's it. And then the nutrition side of things was more after I graduated and was working in a production system in Brazil, swine production system. And I was, visiting a lot of farms, but I figured out that nutrition is 70-80% of the cost of production, so I better learn about that. And I really like to cause like a positive impact, on the farms, the producers I'm working with. So I figured that nutrition would be a good way to do that. Right after grad school, I went to work for PIC, genetic company, for 3 years, travel around the globe. So that was super fun. Emily, interact with like 20, so with nutritionists around 20 countries around the globe. So that was super cool. And then about a year ago or so, we launched the Swine podcast and been doing that since then.
Amazing. So where in the world has your career taken you so far then?
Yeah, so I've traveled to over 20 countries, all 6 continents. And one of the best memories I have is I was giving a workshop in South Africa for 30 swine nutritionists, and then some rhinos show up on the glass, like here on the window. So that was super cool, super crazy.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So in South Africa is incredible, as
Yes.
well as you get rhinos.
Yes. Super interesting experience.
So today we're here to talk about your podcast series, Swine It. Can you explain where the idea for this came about?
Yeah. So let's see. We go back 8 years. I was doing an internship at Carthage Vet Service here in the US, and I was listening to the Swine cast, very familiar to many here in the US, and a very good podcast. So I went back to Brazil, and I was like, wow, we don't have a podcast in Brazil. So we created one in Brazil, and it's still running. And then after that, I went to grad school, started working. I was like, well, maybe one day I can have a podcast and interview folks that I'd like to hear from. And so that's kind of how it came about.
Mm-hmm. And how do you decide on which topics to discuss each week?
Yeah, so we work very closely with our audience, asking, hey, who do you want to listen to? We have a list right now of over 200 names and topics based on the audience input, and we review it and review it again, and that's how discuss with a few folks, and that's how we figure out who we want to, who we interview. Basically, what we are trying to do at the podcast, for one is our goal is really to create positive impact in the swine industry around the globe by disseminating knowledge, right? It could be other countries that don't have as much knowledge as some of the countries, but also bring new ideas from around the globe to the US as well. So where, that's kind of the goal. And, right now we have a YouTube channel. We have over 3,000 downloads per month. We are across 25 countries. And the way we like to describe it, Emily, is a supercharged extension, meaning instead of me driving like I was driving four farms every day, like 4 farms a day, or something like that, we can reach over 1,000 farms a day through the internet.
Yeah.
There's still the value to be in the farm, of course, but there's a bunch of people doing that. So the niche that we find is that.
It's certainly a lot easier to digest information when you can listen to it on the move. Not everybody has the time to sit down and read an article or research something themselves. So I guess, they can come to you as a one-stop shop for, information about what's going on right now that's affecting the global pig industry.
Right.
Yeah. So you certainly have a global plethora of experts speaking throughout the series. How has your background in the industry helped to find the right people for the job?
Right. So I've been focusing on pigs now for about 15 years, and I always trying to figure out. One of my things that I like. I'm a learner. I always want to learn something new, and I always try to keep up with which universities are doing what. What would be the top 5 universities for health, nutrition, reproduction, those kind of things, and then when I went to K-State there during my PhD, their program is very much in tune with the industry, with producers and the industry.
Yeah.
So that helped a lot on the network there. And then when I was working for a genetic company, that also helped a lot on the, meeting people around the globe. So then, as people talk about, if you don't know, right, just talk to other people. Hey, who do you know? And things like that.
So you're certainly an industry expert at this point then. And as the founder of a number of swine-related enterprises, you clearly see a big gap where more effective dissemination of information and collaboration is needed in the pig sector. So how is Swine helping to bridge that gap?
Yeah, so, we looked at our audience today at the podcast, and we know, when we send an email, we know who clicks on it, we know how many sows they influence, and today it's over 4 million sows that are influenced by the folks that are in our audience, which is a humbling and great honor for us. And majority of our audience would be highly trained swine professionals such as swine veterinarians, swine nutritionists, production managers, and producers. And our goal is to keep them updated, and have them share with their team the latest information available, Emily, in swine production.
Brilliant. So that is a big task. So what are your aims for the podcast for the next 12 months?
We're very growth oriented, and we want to double our reach in the next 12 months. Some key areas for us is, continue to find the brightest people we can find around the globe. The other way we look at that is almost like some overlooked geniuses too. We like to bring folks that we already know, they're very well established, but also some folks that not many people knew about. So that's kind of one thing we try to do. And then two, the Swine Talks Web Conference we have this coming October. It's going to be like a TED Talk format. And the goal with that, Emily, is sometimes even folks that are really like me, really love the swine industry, we go to a conference and we get bored, man, so the goal is I guess when you go to a conference, there's some stuff that's great, and then some stuff that's super boring. So the goal of this event is just to have this engaging, dynamic talks that is not boring. It's one of the goals, right? And it's on a TED Talk format for those familiar with the TED Talk. And then the third thing is, to celebrate the 1 year of our podcast, we launched about a month ago, like you said, the YouTube channel. And we have the interviews via podcast, but also video. So that's good for those that do like the YouTube. And also I'm putting a lot of content now as well on that channel.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to content, obviously coronavirus is a big topic right now and will be for the foreseeable future. And so do you think it will be a more common theme as the long-term impacts of the pandemic on food production and the pig sector become clearer?
Yeah, that's definitely a tough question, right? But I think, so we saw what happened to the pork supply chain right now, with the packing plants, some of the packing plants shutting off, and gladly in the US, most, if not all of them right now are open back up. At least not at 100% capacity, but at 70+% of their capacity. I think this whole situation, Emily, is going to create, new discussions around redundancy and reliability of the supply chain. As the globalization continues to get stronger every day. If you follow, I'm a fan of Elon Musk. I always have his book there in the back. And they are planning on being able to fly. There's a video on YouTube that he shows to fly to any part of the globe in like 30 minutes to 1 hour, I think. You can go, say, like US to Shanghai for 30 minutes, something like that. The way you do that, it's pretty much a rocket, right? And just land like that. So imagine what that would do to globalization, disease spreading, human disease, animal disease. So that's super crazy to think about. So we're going to have to step up our game, I think, on that regard.
Certainly. It's quite a daunting prospect. We're certainly starting to see some cracks appear in our current food production systems. But here's hoping that this current outbreak will highlight any major flaws that need to be corrected in order to create a more robust food system model.
Right. Absolutely.
Thank you for giving us a little bit of your background. It's so clear that you have your finger on the pulse when it comes to emerging issues in the global pig industry. And I really look forward to listening to future episodes of the Swine podcast. Now, as a final question, you always ask your speakers what their favourite swine-related books are. So let me ask you what your favourite is today.
For swine-related books, I'd say, as a nutritionist, I do love the NRC 2012. I think most nutritionists do like that book. And I do encourage people that haven't read the actual chapter, because we look at table of requirements, right? And also nutrient loadings, but there's also actual chapters about energy and amino acid and those things, and those are great chapters right there. And then from the health side, disease of swine is something that I've always used over the years in over 1,000 pages. It's pretty comprehensive.
Sounds pretty hefty, but it's something that you come back to over and over again.
Right.
And what is your favorite personal book of all time?
One book that I like that changed my view about assets, liabilities, and just personal finance and things like that is called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I really like that book. A lot of people think that buying a house is an investment. In fact, and it's not, because it's taking money out of your pocket every month. Investments or assets are things that actually put money in your pocket every month. So, that's the one sentence summary of the book.
I'll have to look that one up. Anyway, I think that's probably all we've got time for today, but I very much look forward to hearing from you again and seeing how you progress the Swine podcast in 2020. So thank you once again, Marcio.
Thanks so much, Emily. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate it.